Well, thank you for coming to building the plane while flying it. So a quick disclaimer before we start on what this talk is about and what it isn't. So this isn't a success story. We haven't made enough to earn your ire yet. There's no 0 to 1 where we tell you the secret and you go build a unicorn. We haven't even launched.
And this isn't a pitch either. We're not here to sell you on NovyJump or Silent Engines. Though if you dig it, please like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. We could definitely use your support and attention while we're working on building our platforms and our title.
Google, and a confirmed smart chat bot, called it live ethnography of what it takes to build a thing while you're inside it. Let's call it a conversation about building a game and the platform it lives on at the same time in public.
Yes. Our hope is that some of what we've stumbled into may be useful for you on your own projects, whether you're writing your next game, preparing or looking to collaborate with anyone, or building a platform of your own.
Okay, so quick rundown on who we are. My name is Vinit. I am making a platform for visual novels. It's called NovyJump. There's a team of us. It's a place where you can build episodic interactive fiction using existing game engines like RenPy and let others play them on phones.
And my name is Kyle Brown-Watson. I'm the studio head of our Outpost 4. We're an independent game studio based in Brooklyn, and we're building a visual novel called The Silent Engines. It's a stealth espionage thriller where you are looking for your mentor's killer in this sort of retro future. So it's going to be we'll get into some of the technical questions about that, but long story short, it's got a lot of weird use cases that NovyJump was perfect for collaborating with.
Okay, cool. So in the spirit of visual novels, like all stories, this one starts at the beginning, and like some good interactive fiction out there, there are some options, and you get to choose one. So raise your hand if you want to start with Kyle. Give a thumbs up with Kyle. Vinit, the last one. Cool, yeah. So great, you picked Kyle.
Hi, here I am, picked by popular vote. So like I said, my name's Kyle. A good thing. Where should I start? So I had sort of like a weird career getting into games. I worked in independent theater and video post-production through my 20s. And then I kind of left all that to take a job over at an independent bookstore in Philadelphia. That place predictably went out of business when the pandemic started. So I did go to college for interactivity design, like in the prehistoric late 2000s. And me and a couple of my friends who went to design school decided to start this independent studio. We built a VR game called Nocturne during the pandemic and released that as our first title. And then, once we started to go out into the larger economy, we decided to pivot and use all of our skills and resources to work as a small agency. So we've worked with enterprise clients, municipal clients, small game studios for about 5 or 6 years. And then we decided to refocus and do our first independent story-driven title, which is The Silent Engines I alluded to earlier. And when I first started Outpost 4 around 2020, I had this literal binder full of ideas for games, tactical RPG, this story-driven game, some other titles. But we slowly got them whittled down as the reality of our budgets and our client work started to take priority. So when we got introduced to NovyJump, and we knew that they've already been working in that visual novel space, we knew that we could come to this idea of Silent Engines because we had the benefit of several years of real world experience working on all these different titles.
Okay, going back to the beginning. So this guy's Vinit, and it's 2019. I'm in my silk pajamas in a nice penthouse apartment in the Upper West Side. It's actually a 5th floor walk up. I've had the ceiling fall on me countless times at this point, and the cockroaches are really nice and hanging out. And I'm in my bedroom figuring out if Forbes 30 Under 30 takes extensions when I decided to take a break to watch some anime and read Webtoon. And in all honesty, I was actually trying to decide if I should drop $1,000 on this Unity game dev course in New York when I ended up reading Webtoon instead. And it was after that that I thought to add a new idea to my many ideas that'll land me in that coveted 30 under 30. It was something like Webtoon for visual novels, or like the question that I'd ask is, why aren't there a ton of interactive webcomics? I figured it was probably something I was just missing. So I filed it away with the other 1,000 someday I'll be adult enough to do this ideas, somewhere between move to Japan and give a talk at a games conference. So fast forward one global pandemic, a game studio, a game collective, and slightly fewer cockroaches later, and a lot's happened, namely crypto. And Gumbo is a game collective that I didn't start, but now help run and yap about quite a bit. At the time, a blockchain group making games wanted to collab with Gumbo. They offered us free food and drinks if they could put our name on the event. We said yes. At this event were lots of people with the same idea as us, drink and try to understand why this crypto thing was important. Some of those people included a one Kyle Brown Watson. Also in attendance was a man in a suit. It's a story for another branching option as it written, but it turns out that the suited man was an employee of the Japanese government looking for companies to bring to Japan. I told him I happened to have a great idea about bringing love hotels to America, thinking this was a particularly funny joke. It wasn't, but thankfully a friend said that we had a game collective that would be interested in doing a collaboration. A few months later, I'd quit my day job, sell my stuff, and book a one-way ticket to Japan. It was because of all this that I was able to conduct some user interviews in Japan with Japanese developers. And this is pretty important. I learned while talking to devs in both Japan and the States that there's no dearth of indie game developer talent, but there is a lack of resources, language confidence, ability to deploy and publish games around the world that prohibits developers. I found this surprising because as a weeb myself, I know I'm in good company, like a voracious consumer of content from the East. And so it's where that little nugget of an idea I had in my pajamas evolved into a core principle, which was to make players and publishing accessible. And that's how NovyJump began development in earnest.
All right. So now we're both at a point where we are ready to start building our projects that we've been sitting on for a while. We wouldn't be able to talk about our fateful meeting and eventual partnership without mentioning Gumbo.
Okay. So Gumbo, like all good cults, provides feelings of safety and warmth and requires a steady donation.
Yeah. It's also how many of us meet, test, and get out of the house. It's a lot of things for a lot of people, but for I think many of us, it's become a professional home for sure.
And so if you guys haven't heard of Gumbo, I know some of you already have, it's a game dev collective and a co-working space in Brooklyn. We, as well as it has meetups, a Discord server, and we run a bunch of events.
Yeah, I mean, in practice, Gumbo is whatever the collective needs it to be at any given time. So, this is just it's kind of hard to describe in aggregate, but it's just a cool spot. It's a third space in the truest sense. Mostly all of us have our day jobs, and this is where we come to work on our passions. People who are equally, if not more so passionate, are our peers and our colleagues. It's also how NovyJump and Outpost 4 decided to collaborate. That's how we met.
There are a few Gumbo members actually in the audience right now.
Hello.
So, there are an infinite number of ways to meet the people that you're going to collaborate with, but there are an even larger number of ways to miss them. And so having a third space like Gumbo or wherever it is you're going to go, Rose did a great talk earlier talking about some of this stuff and how you can meet people. So, where you're rubbing against like a pool of likely interlopers or people that you can hang with is a way to increase those really tiny odds. And interloping was actually how this meeting began between Kyle and myself. We knew each other, but EE, who is a director at Gumbo, also happened to be working with the both of us, and noticed that Kyle's team was building a game that might work with NovyJump. And so we met. And this one pager that I've got on the right is actually what we use to send to studios as a template to see if they want to join our testing program. And so I began the conversation tree with Kyle and the Outpost 4 team, something that looks like, the standard pitch. Like you can publish anywhere on our platform, and we got mobile support. And each time I mentioned one of these, it's met with what seems like a lukewarm, like, yeah, cool, this is interesting. So in passing, I was like, we have these metadata variables that you can deal with, and that was kind of history.
So after, this is kind of running parallel to when they were building NovyJump. When we were building Outpost 4, that aforementioned binder full of ideas. We had been pitching publishers, some large, some small, for about 4 or 5 years on different projects. And after we got really kind of cold responses from a couple of them, we had a really warm one with a company based in I believe they were in Singapore. But it was for a big tactical RPG, something we're trying to do like our own version of like Tactics Ogre, basically, or Final Fantasy Tactics. It was really good, and we had like the whole thing like on paper. We had like concept art; it was really on there. And so they gave a really good rejection letter. Basically, they came in person to New York. They let us pitch. Like they really gave us a lot of string to hang ourselves with. And then they came through like, we love this idea. They were like, because I had scoped out, so I think about like $250,000. They're like, there's no way you can make this game for under $1 million, and there's no way we're going to give you $1 million sight unseen. It's just not going to happen, kid. So they said no. They did pay for dinner, which was pretty substantial. But long story long, what we learned in that was that we really had to bring projects into scale and build things to very accurate budgets, because publishers are very risk averse right now and they don't want to have to speculate about costs. So when you come in there, you're like, oh, I think they're not going to come through and like kind of haggle down with you. Like if it's not priced out, they'll just be like, no. So one of the things that was really beautiful when we were starting to like work with NovyJump is that, we took like a deal where we're going to like split revenue, but we had all of their time and attention, which I think a lot of these publishers now who are going into these indie spaces, I don't know who has or hasn't pitched here, but a lot of what's happening is that they are externalizing the risks and the costs onto the development teams or the studios, where they'll basically say, well, this is a good slideshow, but we want to see an MVP or a prototype, whatever. And basically you're going to give them like the first level of your game, like at a high level of polish. And that is just going to require like time and money and burn. And we never got that call from them. We never got that. Like I kind of came in with like a little like plot outline and a couple slides about what we thought this game could be, and they said yes to it, and it was a very emphatic yes, which I was not ready for. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. But something I want to drive home is that it's not that publishers are bad and that new platforms are really good. We're chill, but it's that the reason why this thing seems to have worked is because we're a new platform and our goals are aligned. So publishers are giving lots of money, and so because of that, they're risk averse. They need to make sure they get a return on their investment. For new things, and this is true for like any kind of new platform that has come out. If you look at like the Apple Arcade or any of those arcades that had come out before, they were much more generous with the types of games that they would fund. And so I think just by way of being a new platform, there is a lot of inclination for trying new things. And so it's in our best interest to take a chance on really niche creative titles. I just want to drive that home.
All right, so this is the next segment. This is called Building While Crashing. So basically, we're going to get into the blood and guts of, while these guys are building their engine, we're over here building our story and just doing all the troubleshooting for building a game.
Okay, so yeah, back to the unicorn. I thought I had to do things by the book, like very startup-y. If you guys have read any of the like annoying many startup books out there, the idea is you want to push out development as far back as possible and do as much of the market validation upfront. And that's actually true for if you're making a game as well. And I've got notes from a couple different conferences. So like, I thought we don't need to build a game engine if we just got to get enough design out there. And we went to some of these conferences and we had a kind of prototype-ish of NovyJump out there where we had like literally RenPy playing in a mobile player. And that was cool. It was interesting. And people understood it right away is what was our takeaway. But they wanted more. They generally were like, okay, awesome. When can I play with it? That's a great question. But here's the thing. Don't ask me hard questions because I don't know how to answer them. Because the answer looks something like, before we do that, we need capital. And before we get capital, we need to have some kind of traction. And in order to get traction, we have to show something to people to convince them to give us capital. And it feels like that you're in this sort of loop of not being able to figure out what you should be doing next. So we decided to ask, what if we thought about this differently? What if we didn't need capital, sort of brute forced it? What would we need to do? And in order to make that happen, we thought we needed to know stuff about the actual game, like the game data. So we needed to get information about what the player was doing, like save information, variable data, things like that. And we couldn't get that if we just hosted RenPy games on our platform. We don't have access to that information. And the second was that we needed this to be universally performant. We wanted this to be on mobile. So regardless of whatever the developer did, we needed it to work well. So we needed a game engine. And back to the drawing board we went. I don't even know how many illegible whiteboards that we've got. This is just one of the many. Unrelated story. Back in college, I had a friend. He would go for a run, and he'd tell me, he'd say, Vinit, the way that I feel productive, if I've done nothing all day, is if I go for a run and come back. And this kind of resonated with me. I find that this is how I feel about whiteboards. Give me 5 minutes, and even if we're playing Hangman, I will sleep in peace that night if I've done nothing all day. So literally 2 weekends is what it took before I had a working prototype game engine. And so I was wrong. You can have a game engine. You can build a thing. It doesn't just mean you have to go out and do the marketing stuff first.
So just getting into the idea first off of like what a visual novel is, I think that there's two different experiences here, because a lot of what I was trying to do with Silent Engines was go back to like the games that really inspired me for narrative stuff. So, like it's got to be like a lot of like again, like elder millennial crap, like Under a Steel Sky, trying to think of what else, like a Mind Forever Voyaging, a lot of these sort of like crunchy kind of intellectual like games that have like all these sort of like meta weird things in them. But long story short, like this idea of like the visual novel, Snatcher, if anyone's seen that, or Police Dots, like that's kind of what I had in my head when I was thinking about like what a visual novel could be and what I wanted to kind of do. And after talking with the NovyJump guys and like realizing that there's this whole world of like this sort of prompt-based like mobile market, that was when I started to get into that space of like kind of retooling Silent Engines to be something that could kind of run in this, and then like also seeing like what the fun of that could be. This idea that like what they're doing with these sort of sequential stories is like you go in there and you may have like 8 or 10 minutes, and then you play that, and then it's just like chapter by chapter release. It really made me start to think about the game differently. So because the original treatments were a lot denser. And a lot of what I think I was trying to do when I was going through, because I built a prototype of Silent Engines, I think in like 2022. And I was really trying to show like basically like every idea I had about like video games. Like it was gonna have like weird save states and you'd be able to do this, and like you would customize da. And it was just very it was really crunchy and it wasn't fun. And I just kind of like set the idea aside. And after some reflection, and after like really like once I had the opportunity to think about like working with these guys, I really think about like I like the core idea of the story of you playing the spy, kind of coming to terms with your mentor's background. But it's like this is a story about like navigating that grief and like navigating that's kind of the emotional experience I wanted the player to have at the end of it. And when you start working your way backwards from how you want the player to feel, that starts, at least for me, it was like a moment of humbling. I'm like, all right, well, I don't need all this other crap. But it also starts to illustrate, like, these are the things that I was going to be, when we were working together, our team was going to be asking NovyJump to kind of provide for us. I think the lesson here on both of our ends is just that, you really want to start being a realist about it, but don't overthink it. Don't start asking for permission. Just start building it and be humble during that process. And I would also stick on to that a really good way, whether or not, because you guys are doing the engineering, we're on the creative side of it. I think that the core thing that you want to do is you want to work backwards from player and user experience, and not try to impose answers on the people. Just what your intentions are going to be where that goes through. Because the problem with a lot of like, digital media is that you could do anything that you want. So you really need to start asking yourself, what are we not going to do? And it's always easier to do that when you start thinking about it from player and user outcomes. All right, so yeah, so we're going to get into basically like how our teams were developed and how the construction of your team will really kind of determine how your project goes through.
So I'm building this thing. I'm building NovyJump, talking to authors all over, trying to convince them to join the platform, and I realized that I'm out of my depth. I thought I could do this all myself, and it turns out, I'm surprised that having teammates is really, really helpful. So I'm hearing people use the phrase like step function when talking about technology upgrades. It's a step function improvement in something, and that's like an infinite slope increase or 0 to 1, whatever cliche you want to use. I thought it was cringy in the beginning, but I think it's true. Every single person, you can go through each one of these people, like John, who's our designer, who joined. We have a logo, and that's a big deal. Jay joins, and we have a game engine, Parth, an app, so on. Like EE introduced us to Kyle, and now we're giving this talk. Makes me wonder what I'm doing here. And I think so having a team is important, and it's greater than the sum of its parts. Each person is going to add something as long as you pick the right people. And in order to pick the right people, I found that it was useful to use that third space. Everything I did at or with Gumbo for NovyJump. And the other way around. So the Japan trip way back when I bought that one-way ticket, that one I actually roped Gumbo into it, and we did an event together. We hosted a New York devs, US devs meets Japanese developers, and ended up becoming this like big thing. And we now do a Japan program every year at Gumbo. Jay and I had actually worked on that program, and Jay, John, and I are all directors at Gumbo. So, and we literally broke down walls. If you've ever been in the Gumbo space, there's a wall between two rooms that has a hole in it. It's a door now. And Parth and I used to work together at a company before, and he's just a big gaming nerd. So how to build a team, or how I went around building this particularly great team, I used that third place.
So my team is a little different. So again, the founders I started the company with, we were both in design school, and we had very different backgrounds, and we kind of had this like weird career path that we went through, but we kind of came together on games. The rest of the people who kind of came on board were freelancers who kept working with us. Luckily, I like to think that we're nice to work for. Like, I'm a pretty indulgent boss, a bit of a pushover. We pay well, so it's always good too. But it's just like, basically the team that we had was really battle tested, because as I said before, we had worked on commercial projects. We had worked on, some of these like enterprise and government clients. So we had done a lot of things for a lot of different places, and we kind of really got this like shorthand of how to work together. But the things that we realized that we were really good at was that, we're really good with creating like rich multimedia. One of the people who was working on this game is a good friend of mine, Richard Blake. He's a comic book artist. He's working for Image Comics. And he does these really, really, really big, like wide format images and things like that. Same thing with like the audio and things that we have. So we knew that like for Silent Engines that like we're going to lean into what we do well. And in order to do that, we're going to have to like go through that prototyping phase, which we got all that experience with the commercial projects. So I think a large part of the takeaway that we got is that, and this is also given our 5 or 6 years of experience before we did this, is we also had to take our team and work on things that were completely out of our comfort level, right? So it's like, that is also something where you're just like, you can look at your resume and be like, oh, C#, but like, if you don't want to work on like a medical prototype and then you're working on one, this is a fucking problem, right? Like, you got to figure out like where your comfort level is with everything that you do. It's not just always a technical problem. You can't just look at someone's resume and say that they could do A, B, and C, and then put them on a project where they are just not going to feel like seen or comfortable, right? So your team is really going to determine what you build, no matter what you do. Jean-Luc Godard has this very good quote about filmmaking, and that this idea that like the budget of the film is the politics of the film. And I think that very much can be said with game development, where the politics of your team will really determine the outcome of your game. And you can say the same thing for the budget. So we knew from experience that like one way or another, we're going to make like a rich multimedia experience on mobile that's going to be like aggressively prototyped. And we knew that in doing that, we'd be able to give good feedback and information back to the NovyJump team while they're building their engine. So it just kind of aligned correctly. And this is where we get into building the silent engine. It's really weird that this is like an engine and then like the engine was in the titles like 6 years ago. It's very strange.
Very nice.
There you go.
So to give some context as to how some of the challenges that we're going to talk about would eventually come up during the build process and the design process. Just a little background on Kyle and Spencer, who are the two founders of Outpost 4. Kyle went to design school, so it's Spencer. And then this Vinit has a master's in Google Shapes. Thought it was really important to call that out before we get into some of the other stuff that we talk about.
So a lot of what we knew that we wanted for engines was just going to like run solely on prompts. That was going to be the core of it. A lot of it is just like you just clicking yes, no, kill the cat, save the cat, whatever. But we wanted to bring a lot of these other RPG elements in. We wanted like a rich item system. We wanted very deep save states. We wanted the NPCs to remember choices on all those different things. And that was part of their metadata system, was to support very complex save states and inventory. So this is kind of what we wanted. So
we had an idea of what we thought we wanted to exist in the platform. So we knew we wanted to enforce some constraints on what is going to exist on it. And that the idea was we want to somehow we want the game development process on NovyJump to be easy to do and you're not struggling with the tools. The team agreed based on the feedback that we got from Outpost 4 that there did need to be more flexibility. So we ended up building more capabilities into the platform, namely the ability to assign variables and complex data types.
And it wasn't a full inventory system we were pushing for, but it did remove some of our blockers and allow our engineers to work with both the constraints given and the design of the game and the design of the platform.
So we had another meeting with the team where we just discussed the idea of a design system.
Yeah, and again, so with the design background, we wanted a design system. We wanted to have like all sorts of components that we could kind of switch in. We've done a lot of web design. We did a lot of iterative prototyping on apps. So we knew that we wanted to have this sort of like rich UI UX experience during the game, and not just have it be this sort of like very kind of rudimentary interface you see on a lot of these in the App Store. So like the design system wasn't a way to like apply those customization options. With things like moving and like slight animations, importing font libraries that are going to be like lossless and rich. Those are the kind of things that we wanted to have like resizing for like mobile experiences. And that's really, with love and care and gentleness, that's really what we were like pushing NovyJump to provide for us when we were doing engine requests.
So yeah, it was a valid concern. There are some reasons why we didn't. So in order to get the things that they wanted, we needed to support all of RenPy. Basically, we needed to, if anybody's ever built in RenPy before, it's just a whole ass game engine. You can do everything you want there. And in our platform, originally, we had thought that we had wanted to scope that down to something that would be what we thought was a mobile-friendly visual novel system, whatever that. So it was a subset of RenPy. And the reason why we didn't want to support all of RenPy, there are a lot. One is that localization is pretty difficult to do when you're thinking about fonts. And Kyle and the team had some pretty neat ideas about supporting lots of different fonts and styles. And so we did eventually get to the point of making that part of the framework, but that's something that was a challenge for us. And RenPy is like English in sort of all of the worst ways. It's an unconventional language. There are lots of words that mean the same thing in different contexts, and there are different inconsistent grammar choices. Also, with RenPy, you can access the internet, which we don't want to do. So we did eventually support most of it. I called out here that changing a game engine is pretty hard. We added I don't know how many thousands of lines of code to our internal game engine that we have. But we were able to, this is to show the progression of like there's a tension between being a developer on a platform versus a developer of a platform, and there's this like push and pull of what features get developed on it.
Yeah, so but I think that one of the things that we kind of learned from, again, just like the design work that we did, is that embracing constraints helps a lot from a design perspective, because again, it gets to that question of like, what are we not going to do, right? So narrowing options and focusing attention is really critical, and working backwards from hardware constraints with the NovyJump platform just was really where our head was at. So the same thing that we were doing with the plot in terms of like thinking about like, what are the outcomes that we want? What do we want the feeling that people walk away with? We just sort of applied that logic to like, what is the hardware experience that we want to have that is going to be like locked in with this? And then we don't have to worry about all these other kind of edge cases that, the mind wanders when you don't have the constraints.
Yeah, and those constraints are important too. I mean, the things that are physical constraints also will inform the design, and they create something that isn't a blank canvas. So blank canvases are hard. They're bad. They make, coming up with an idea, you're always faced with a blank canvas. But having bad tooling is worse, and we don't want to be that. So that's sort of why we wanted to call out talking about constraints and how that was important to the discussions that we were having. Okay, so speaking of constraints, I thought it'd be important for us to have a full slide on what a visual novel is. This is a topic for a whole ass talk. We're not going to get into all of it. But we did a little screenshot of Steam. If anybody's tried to search for a particular tag on Steam, it's very difficult to get the exact thing that you want. Visual novel is just one example of it. So Steam's tagging system is, for good reason, really flexible. You've got in this thing, I've searched for visual novel here. You've got some really high budget games, and then you've got low budget games, and you've got dating sims and anything that maybe has anime eyes in it.
Yes.
So it's sort of all over the place.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so I think that we're going into this place. I'm trying to remember. If anyone has read any Vyokai Benkler, he talks about a lot about like the sort of the flattening of digital media and how everything is, users are experiencing everything everywhere all at once. To steal a phrase, because I would say that like Dispatch is a visual novel basically. It's like you're not jumping around, you're not like interacting, there's no traversal, like you're just making choices. It's a dating sim. Like, a lot of what players are doing in the metaphor and the grammar that they're using in a lot of games right now is the grammar of a visual novel, in the sense that like it's a static image or it's a locked animation. You're just making choices, right? So I think that when you kind of take that kind of broad look at it, because again, on the creation side of it, we can be very crunchy and very particular about like, oh, well, this is a visual novel, and like this is like an interactive comic, but it's like everyone is just kind of like playing these choice-based games. So once we kind of looked at it from that perspective, I kind of came to the conclusion that anything where you have sequential movement of some kind that is prompted by user like input and choices is a visual novel, which I think is sort of an expansive, like maybe kind of like cheating, esoteric definition of it, but it's certainly the one that we found useful.
Yeah, and for us, it's really that it should quack like a duck, and so it's an important question to talk about what a visual novel is. It's going to inform the types of features that we're going to provide on our platform, and it'll let players know, it'll give them a shorthand for what they're getting into when they're opening the app. So in like the tension of genre versus medium, we sort of lean more on the visual novel being a medium, and the stories that are told, it's their choice whether they want to hear to certain like genre tropes. How are we on? Are we good on time? All right, cool.
So our biggest challenge has been, proactively thinking about what our design choices are going to kind of problemate for NovyJump, and looping them in as quickly as possible. So that forces us to be very kind of like deliberate and well documented in our design decisions, because when we're going to go and talk to these guys and ask for ABC XYZ, we really have to have like a good reason why we're doing that, because they are building this, like as Vinit has alluded to. They're not building like tool sets, they're building the entire engine. So when we're asking for things, we can't come in there and be like, we just want extra chocolate sprinkles on the engines. It has to be like a meaningful thing, right? So that means we have to be consistent and accountable and structured in our requests. And I think that like that's something that we really needed to start early on with the RenPy team, is just like setting an expectation for like a biweekly meeting. Just having regular office hours where I'm available or one of the principals of the studio is available, and just making it clear, and our lead dev at O4, Nadia, is a really, really excellent proactive communicator. So when she's making changes or anything else like that is going on, like when she starts to see the problems, she will ping Vinit's team very, very early on in the process. That is not normal, I would say. Correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of engineers don't do that.
Yeah,
a lot of times people wait till it's on fire and then they ask you to come in with a bucket of water. So I think that like when you're looking at ways to be a good collaborator, again, be very consistent, show up on time, like do your deliverables as quickly as possible, and then also really interrogate your intentions and communicate those proactively. I cannot emphasize that enough. Proactively communicate. Do not wait until there is an emergency. Just act when there's a problem.
Yeah, and I know this slide, the content of it is really brief, but it was figuring this out was a game changer for us. The communication, doing things like bi-weekly check-ins and having tech discussions in office hours, being really like I think we've been pretty open about exactly what our game engine does to the Outpost 4 team, their engineers, even their designers, and I think that's built a lot of buy-in from them because they have an active say in what things are being built, and they can kind of see how the sausage is made.
And I will just say, you can advance the slide. Just as a side note, a lot of what we learned about good communication, we learned because we fucked up a lot when we were doing stuff with other clients. I mean, these guys are great, but like when you are working with like fashion and these other places, and people who have like a lot of money and like probably like a lot of like personality disorders that they're masking like really at a high level, and like kind of mean, and you have to really extra think about like communication. By the time we got to these guys, it was like smooth sailing. So you just want to learn from the mistakes of others in that sense.
Yeah, or mask your personality disorders really well.
Please do so.
Okay, so what's next? On the NovyJump side of things, we're still in a closed alpha testing phase. We've got a handful of devs that we're working with, and as of a week ago, we'll be set to go into a beta phase later in July, and then we'll launch later this year. So we had to push back some of our launch for good reason. We built an entire, we updated our game engine based on feedback.
And then as far as O4 is concerned, please reach out if you're interested in what's going on. We're going to be more public with our design process. We're going to have more drops of art. I just got a huge cache of music. Just like our whole sound profile that we're going to start sharing. We do little soundtracks for all of our games all the time, and I really, really love this one. So we're going to be talking about that, later this summer. Please follow us on Blue Sky. We got the same for our Instagram account. You can follow me on LinkedIn. But come in the process, sign up, and we'd love to let you know what's going on.
Yeah. And if you're into visual novels, interactive fiction, you're welcome to join our testing program, especially when we get into closed and open beta. Those are our socials. The QR code works. You can put your email in there. Or if you just want to hang out, find me on LinkedIn. I put that up there. Put Kyle's up there too.
And our takeaways are this in brief. So we have a visual novel that's being built on a new platform for episodic visual novels. NovyJump is a platform built by creators, for creators, but the only way it's going to get better is if we get feedback from viewers like you. So please, get in there, test it, knock it around. We really want writers and people who are going to be using this thing to, field test as much as possible. Don't wait until your tools are perfect to start making something when you decide it needs to exist. A lot of times you're going to make the things that you're working with better by just working on them, have a bias towards action. The interactive fiction world is small enough that, if you're in a small community, if you've just got a little peer group, even if it's only online, you can leverage that community to really punch very, very high above its weight. We're not sitting around here with $1 billion, but we're getting a lot of high-end results just because, we were in the right room at the right time. It's once you make that first step to introduce and connect, things just start piling up. And then lastly, I think that like overall, this is like advice for any creative field, no matter what you do. It's a very permissions-based world that we live in. I think that there's a lot of social pressure on people to feel the need that you have to be at a certain level of whatever you want to do that. I certainly did not come from a background like all my family. They were like working in trades. My dad's a plumber. Like I was never supposed to be doing this kind of stuff. And I definitely self-censored and like made myself smaller when I started my career, when I got into certain spaces, because I was waiting for somebody to give me the permission. There had to be a global pandemic where I was really like facing myself to realize like, I could do whatever I want, you know, within limits, but it's like, you know, if you want to go and do that, you can do that. Don't wait until like, you know, some sort of like layoff or, you know, when you get the ideal time, like just go in there and do what you're going to do and don't wait for permission.
It's a cute little thing. But thank you. Thanks y'all for coming by. All our shows are up there. And
Excellent.
Yeah, if you have any questions.
Do we have time for questions? How are we on time?
Yeah, we got 5 minutes left for questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Comments? Yes.
I'm curious if any teachers are remote and if they are, how do you navigate?
What was that again?
Are any of your teammates remote?
Okay, yes.
Wait, let's repeat the question.
What's your name first off?
It's Emily.
All right,
from
thank you,
Gumbo.
Emily. So Emily's question was, how do you keep a good cadence of communication if someone's remote?
Yeah.
So I think that I could probably answer that one pretty fast. When we started our company, again, it was during the pandemic. So when we were working on our first game, my art director lived 2 blocks away from me, and I didn't see her for a year. So we had a very kind of like remote first culture, and I think a large part of what makes remote work have a high confidence level is making sure that whatever you're going to do, it has to be a ritual. So if you're going to have a meeting at Monday, just make sure that meeting at Monday is always there. Even if you're just going to be talking about stupid shit, like you just want to have, there needs to be some sort of, you know, like classroom opening kind of like camp counselor kind of thing. Really, you really have to like make people feel like that sense of trust and just having a good, like regular, consistent cadence of it. But I would say the biggest thing is just create a ritual, bi-weekly, weekly, something just has to happen on a regular basis. And once people get in that rhythm, they'll feel good.
Yeah, to echo that, I have so all of my founders are remote. We're all kind of all over the place too. And I found the consistency, having something on the calendar is huge. And you can point to it, you can be like, hey, are you guys joining in however many minutes? Also having one-on-one sessions with whoever the lead of a project is, making sure everyone kind of feels a sense of buy-in and they feel like, just like if you're working on any project, anything that isn't maybe making money right away, there is a sense of you're going to lose, like this becomes a grind. You guys have to motivate each other. And one of those ways is have your team lead or whoever is leading the project meet with the other person, make sure that they feel like they have a stake in the thing.
And you can empower people too. Like if you have like team leads, even if there's only 2 or 3 of you, you can delegate, be like, hey, like, you know, the 2 engineers, you can have that breakout time. It's a really good way to do that. There's a very good book by 37 Signals called Getting Real. And it's all about like running remote office culture. It's excellent. I would highly recommend that. I would also recommend Brian Eno's book. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Oblique Strategies. Yeah, no, it's excellent. But like basically it's like this like a book or like a deck of cards, and they just have like all these sort of weird prompts. Like he'll have said something where it's like, you know, make a bad song on purpose, or like, you know, write your lyrics backwards. But I've also found that like doing like oblique strategy kind of things, like icebreakers with people on teams, that can also like be like a trust building exercise. But like, you know, when you're project managing, whether it's in person or remote, what your job as a project manager, and I don't know if that's what you do, but if you're going to be doing that in any capacity, your job is to be building and maintaining trust with your team members. And it's very hard to build that trust. It's really easy to lose it. So you want to really like be very deliberate and calculated about how you want to do that. And I would just say that again, when you're in a remote situation, that trust deficit is like a lot harder to close. People want to work in terms of that stuff. So like, it's just, you have to be a lot more disciplined when you're also working remote, I would say.
Cool.
Any
Uh,
other questions?
We got one on the Discord.
Okay, who's this?
Jared from the Discord says, I have a question for both speakers, time permitting. Why choose mobile from a development side?
That's a good question.
Okay. I can take this one.
Yeah, of course.
So we decided to go with mobile because platforms for visual novels already exist on like itch and Steam. Like you can host this thing. And we found there are some mobile platforms now for visual novels on mobile. But we wanted this to be as accessible as possible. So it sort of came from the idea of like, why is there not this accessible webtoon for visual novel kind of thing? We had found that with visual novel platforms out there right now, you have to use a bespoke game engine, or you have to be a first party developer for some of these like choices and things like that. So that was the idea, is we wanted to make this as accessible as possible. NovyJump is also a web platform. So it's just a web platform that is also an app.
Yeah, I can certainly say for the mobile stuff, you know, it's where the kids are at. I mean, everybody's on their phone all the time, and I think that it's just, you know, if you're going to be doing anything for that, the intimate spaces there would be a challenge, and I think a way for us to get a lot more eyeballs on it. There would certainly be a vision of this game. Again, I was alluding to Snatcher and these other kind of like big classes that are like a little more wide format. That was my fantasy of what it could be. And one of the things that made me want to kind of like change and constrain this was the potentiality to be seen by more users on that. Also, I just think like mobile's really intimate. There's something about like when you're on your phone and like you're on the subway or like you're about to go to sleep and like you're just do. It's like, again, it has that sort of like, you're getting your comic book every Wednesday, or you're getting, you know, your little like section of, A Christmas Carol off the boat in the 19th century. Like there's something about having that like regular appointment time and having it very kind of close to you, having like manga or anything like that. And I do feel like that's where a lot of people are doing most of their reading. So if we're going to be doing something that's going to have like a lot of writing in it, mobile's the right place to go. Yeah. So I think that we could call it there.
Yeah.
There's no other questions. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, y'all.
That's it.
Jeff, you want-